Which also brings me to the point of the palace, because there would have been staff there. They would have seen what was going on, the comings and goings within the palace. It was also revealed that there was a creepy code word that Andrew used when ordering palace staff to let us...
Everyone's talking about Prince Andrew's childhood nickname, but they're missing the real story lurking beneath those innocent two words that a former royal nanny whispered in private. The nickname itself is harmless enough, but what it quietly reveals about the palace's decades-long damage control strategy will make your jaw drop. Behind closed doors, the people closest to the royal household spotted a massive problem brewing when Andrew was still small enough to fit in a nursery, and the monarchy has been desperately trying to contain the explosive consequences ever since. This isn't just royal gossip. This is a masterclass in institutional survival, and once you see the pattern, you'll never look at the House of Windsor the same way again. The reported nickname came from Mabel Anderson, a trusted nanny who didn't just care for Andrew but also raised King Charles and his siblings, so she knew exactly what normal royal behavior looked like. According to explosive tabloid reporting, she called him Young Imp after watching him unleash what insiders describe as relentless mischief, boundary-testing pranks and chaos that left staff scrambling to keep up. But here's the detail that changes everything about how we understand Andrew's entire life trajectory. Anderson reportedly once admitted that a single nursery couldn't contain two children like him. Think about that for a second. This wasn't just gentle teasing about a naughty child. This was a seasoned royal staff member confessing in plain English that managing Andrew required extraordinary structure, constant attention, and exhausting amounts of energy that drained everyone around him. And here's why that seemingly innocent observation matters more now than ever. In royal households, staff members can't discipline children like ordinary families do. They redirect, smooth over incidents, prevent public scenes, plan routes around explosive moods, and most importantly, they learn exactly what sets someone off, what calms them down, and what buys precious time before the next outburst. So when you hear a nanny reaching for the label Young Imp, you're actually witnessing the earliest version of a palace survival tactic that continues to this day. Make the problem sound cute, make it seem manageable, and whatever happens, keep the chaos moving away from public view. Fast forward decades, and Andrew's dangerously inflated self-image becomes the story that nearly destroyed the monarchy's reputation forever. Remember that iconic moment when Prince Andrew returned from the Falklands War with a rose between his teeth, grinning like a conquering hero while the entire nation celebrated? That single image locked in a mythology that would prove catastrophically toxic, because here's the brutal truth about royal legends. Once someone starts believing their own press, they begin treating ordinary rules like optional suggestions that apply to everyone except them. You can see terrifying hints of that untouchable mindset in how the Newsnight era unfolded like a slow-motion car crash that nobody could stop watching. Picture this: a prince so convinced of his own invincibility that he genuinely believed he could stroll into a television studio, defend his association with Jeffrey Epstein, and somehow emerge victorious because in his warped perception of reality, consequences were things that happened to other people. The hubris was breathtaking, the execution was humiliating, and the fallout was exactly what palace insiders had been dreading for years. Because here's what keeps senior royals awake at night. The monarchy can survive almost any scandal except the kind that refuses to die, keeps reopening old wounds, and turns into a permanent stain that no amount of PR magic can scrub away. November 2019 marked the beginning of the end for Andrew's public life, and if you read between the lines of the official statements, you can practically hear the palace machinery grinding into damage control mode. After mounting pressure around his Jeffrey Epstein connections reached a fever pitch, Andrew stepped back from royal duties, using language so carefully crafted that every word was probably debated by lawyers for hours. He claimed the situation had become a major disruption to his family's work, described his Epstein association as ill-judged, expressed sympathy for victims, and said he'd be willing to help law enforcement if required. That tiny phrase, "if required," might sound polite and cooperative to casual observers, but legal experts recognized it as carefully guarded language that commits to absolutely nothing while creating the illusion of cooperation. And here's why that matters. It becomes the foundation for the monarchy's entire Andrew strategy going forward, which transforms into one long, exhausting exercise in institutional guarding. They're guarding the brand, guarding the monarchy's reputation, guarding the crucial line between family loyalty and official representation. And most desperately, they're guarding against the nightmare scenario where Andrew's problems become the entire royal family's problems in the public mind. By January 2022, Buckingham Palace finally stopped pretending they could manage the Andrew situation with subtle hints and diplomatic language, instead choosing to deliver a brutal public amputation that shocked royal watchers worldwide. With the Queen's personal approval, Andrew's military affiliations and royal patronages were stripped away and returned to Her Majesty. He was banned from undertaking any public duties whatsoever, and reports confirmed he would stop using his HRH title in any official capacity, while defending his legal case as a private citizen. This wasn't subtle palace maneuvering. This was the institution screaming, "You can be our relative, but you absolutely cannot be our representative," loud enough for the entire world to hear. The timing reveals just how desperate the situation had become, because the pressure surrounding those moves included a devastating public letter from military veterans arguing it was completely untenable for Andrew to retain any honorary roles while facing such serious allegations. That letter represents the monarchy's absolute nightmare scenario, not just random criticism from social media trolls, but respected patriotic constituencies with unquestionable credibility saying enough is enough, this has gone too far. When military veterans start publicly demanding action against a royal patron, the palace knows they're facing an existential threat to their most important relationships. Then came the word that everyone misunderstands, but changes everything about how this story ends. Settlement. In February 2022, Andrew reached an out-of-court settlement with Virginia Giuffre that involved an undisclosed financial sum, reportedly worth millions, plus a substantial donation to Giuffre's charity, supporting victims' rights, and carefully worded language acknowledging she had suffered both as a victim of abuse and from vicious public attacks while still not admitting any legal liability. Here's why this seemingly straightforward resolution actually makes Andrew's situation infinitely more complicated. There's no trial, no verdict, no final courtroom moment where one side wins decisively and the public gets closure before moving on to the next scandal. Instead, the settlement creates a permanent cloud of unresolved questions that will follow Andrew for the rest of his life, because settling without admitting guilt allows critics to assume the worst, while supporters can claim vindication, meaning the controversy never actually ends. The institutional damage remains active and ongoing, and the monarchy remains perpetually responsible for managing endless speculation, conspiracy theories, and public relations disasters that can explode without warning whenever Andrew's name resurfaces in the news. That's where the palace shifts from punishment mode into pure containment strategy, and if you want to see containment in its most ruthless form, don't waste time analyzing balcony appearances or ceremonial snubs. Look at property, because real estate tells the real story about royal power dynamics in ways that public statements never can. Royal Lodge becomes the perfect symbol of Andrew's impossible situation. A grand, historic home that looks impressive but comes with crushing financial burdens, terrible optics, and lease complications that make escape nearly impossible. Throughout 2024, reports emerged that Andrew would have to pay his own astronomical costs for upkeep, security, and maintenance if he wanted to remain at Royal Lodge, because subsidies from King Charles were definitely not available indefinitely, creating a financial trap that tightens every month. Coverage detailed the brutal practicalities: long-term lease arrangements that seemed favorable when signed, massive early renovation costs that Andrew can't recover, and rapidly shrinking incentives to leave voluntarily, while alternative housing options remain limited and much less prestigious. This is where the monarchy reveals its most calculating strategic instincts, because royal housing isn't just about comfort or convenience. It's about proximity to power, visible status within the family hierarchy, comprehensive security arrangements, and most crucially, it's the difference between looking like you still belong in the inner circle versus looking like you've been quietly shuffled to the margins and forgotten. That's why every piece of downsizing speculation feels less like simple real estate negotiations and more like exile disguised with polite diplomatic language that fools no one paying attention. Even official coverage of the Royal Lodge situation carefully notes the palace line that this represents long-term financial pragmatism rather than purely personal family disagreements, and that phrasing is classic monarchy speak: practical, unemotional, almost corporate in its calculated detachment. But here's the devastating human reality lurking underneath all that bureaucratic language. When the institution starts saying pay your own way, what they're really saying is we're done carrying you, you're on your own now, and we don't care how painful that feels. And that brings us full circle to that seemingly innocent childhood nickname, because what exactly did Mabel Anderson do when faced with a difficult, disruptive child in a royal nursery all those decades ago? She contained the chaos through careful management, redirected dangerous energy into harmless outlets, established firm boundaries that protected everyone else, and most importantly, she made Andrew's presence survivable for the staff, family members, and institution around him. That's precisely what the modern palace has been desperately attempting with adult Andrew, except now they're using lawyers instead of lullabies, lease agreements instead of bedtime routines, financial pressure instead of timeouts, and carefully crafted public statements instead of nursery rules. The fundamental strategy remains identical: contain the damage, redirect the attention, and whatever it takes, make this survivable for everyone who isn't Andrew himself. The forgiveness storyline circulating in some outlets adds another layer of complexity that reveals how thoroughly the public narrative has spun beyond anyone's control, including dubious lip-reader interpretations of private family conversations and unverified claims about questions posed to Prince William during recent public appearances. These stories remain unverified by their very nature and shouldn't be treated as factual transcripts, but they matter enormously as optics, because they demonstrate how Andrew's story keeps mutating and generating new controversy even when he's largely absent from public life. And here's the question that cuts to the heart of everything: forgiveness from whom? Exactly. From family members speaking privately behind closed doors, or from an institution that simply cannot afford sentimental decisions when the monarchy's entire future depends on cold, calculated pragmatism? Because the House of Windsor isn't a normal family dealing with normal problems, it's a centuries-old system designed for survival above all else. And systems don't forgive or forget, they reassign responsibilities, restrict access, reduce risks, and when absolutely necessary, they amputate infected limbs to save the whole body. Here's what stands out when you examine every twist, turn, and carefully worded statement across Andrew's entire trajectory from childhood to crisis. The specific details change, the decades change, the public relations language evolves and adapts, but the core pattern remains stubbornly, undeniably consistent. Andrew acts impulsively, creates chaos, crosses boundaries, and the palace immediately rearranges itself to absorb the inevitable fallout, while protecting the institution's reputation at all costs. From young impa causing mayhem in the nursery, to private citizen mentioned only in damage control statements, to the very adult question now hovering over Royal Lodge like a sword: who pays the bills, who makes the final decisions, and how much longer can this exhausting dance continue before something has to break permanently?